This story was sent to me by one of my subscribers. Her name is Madison. We used to love exploring abandoned houses when I was younger. It was about 10 years ago, back when I lived on the outskirts of town. My neighborhood was full of old, crumbling homes left behind by families who had long since moved away. There were no fences, no security, no signs saying to stay out. Just empty, forgotten places waiting to be discovered. To us teenage boys, those homes were like treasure chests. We didn't care about big places like hospitals or schools. Those were the kinds of buildings that would show up on internet channels. We liked the quiet ones. Small homes with rotting wood, cracked walls, shattered windows. The kinds of places you could slip into and out of without anyone noticing. One of those houses stood out more than the rest. There was a rumor at school about it. Kids said that in the living room of one particular abandoned house, there was an old, black rotary phone, the kind you have to turn with your finger to dial. The strange part wasn't the phone itself, but what it supposedly did. People claimed it would ring. Just ring out of nowhere. That rumor hooked me immediately. It wasn't some ghost story. It wasn't about some figure lurking in the shadows. It was about a phone. And I kept thinking, who would be calling it? Why would it ring? That mystery sat in my brain like a puzzle I couldn't stop thinking about. One evening after school, my friends and I decided to check it out. There were 4 of us. We grabbed our bikes and made our way toward the mountains where the house was supposed to be. It took a while to reach it, but as soon as we saw the overgrown weeds stretching all the way to the front door, we knew we had found the right place. The path to the door had clearly been walked before. We followed it and pushed the door open. It groaned on nearly broken hinges. My heart thudded in my chest as we stepped inside. The air smelt like dust and decay. In the living room, the stopped hands of a clock hung frozen on the wall. An ancient calendar from the Showa era still clung to a nail nearby. And just beneath that calendar, there it was, the black phone. It sat on a small table with a dirty notepad beside it. We stared at it for a moment before wandering around the house. It was small, barely a few rooms, and most of them were empty. After a short walkthrough, we ended up back in the living room and decided to wait. Maybe we'd hear the phone ring. We stood there, quietly, waiting, hoping, but nothing happened. Eventually, someone said it must be fake, just a dumb rumor. We were about to leave when it happened. The phone rang. A piercing trill echoed through the room. We all froze. Nobody moved. The sound cut through the silence like a knife. I should have run. We all should have. But something made me reach for it. Without thinking, I picked up the receiver and brought it to my ear. There was a sound. Not a voice at first. It was more like buzzing. Faint, distant, like the call wasn't coming from another town, but somewhere far beneath the ground. Then I heard it. A voice. Distorted. Strange. Like it was trying to say something, but couldn't quite break through. We passed the phone around. Each of us listened. None of us could make out the words, but we could all feel the chill in the sound. It was creepy, unsettling. Then one of my friends suddenly shouted, "No!" and threw the phone across the room. He bolted for the door, and we chased after him. We rode our bikes down the mountain without stopping, our hearts pounding. Later, we asked him what he had heard. He just shook his head and said he didn't want to talk about it, that whatever it was, he wished he hadn't heard it. He hoped none of us ever would. For days afterwards, we were scared of our own phones. Even when caller ID showed a familiar name, we couldn't help but feel like something else might be on the other end. But nothing ever came of it. After a week, things went back to normal. Eventually, that house was torn down. It had been standing empty for almost 20 years. Now it's gone. Just a memory, a creepy story that still sits in the back of my mind. But what I still can't stop thinking about is this. How did the phone ring? There's no way it should have. The house had no electricity, no connection, nothing. So who called? And what were they trying to say? That thought still haunts me, even now.
This story was sent to me by one of my subscribers. His name is Jason. Around 2 a.m. one night, I was lying in bed reading a book. I'm a homebody and a night owl, so staying up late wasn't unusual for me. Suddenly, I heard a loud banging on my front door. It shook the whole room. Someone was hitting it with serious force, like punching and kicking. At first, I thought maybe a neighbor was upset about noise, but I wasn't playing music or watching TV. It made no sense. Peeking through the peephole, I saw a short man who looked to be in his 50s. He was furiously kicking the door, furious beyond anything I'd ever seen. His face was hard to make out because he was moving so fast, but I didn't recognize him at all. I'd never had trouble with neighbors before and had no clue why he was there. I assumed he lived nearby, but I didn't know what else to do except open the door and ask what he wanted. I kept the security chain on, wary of him. That chain probably saved my life. As soon as I cracked the door open, a knife shot through the gap and stabbed wildly in the air, missing me by just a couple centimeters. I stepped back in shock. The man was now trying to force the door open, pulling on the handle with all his strength and testing the chain. Seeing him distracted, I rushed to close the door and was lucky to be stronger than him. I slammed it shut hard. I hoped I might have caught his fingers in the door, but no luck. I locked the door and shouted at him to explain himself. He said nothing. Instead, he stood with his back to the peephole so I couldn't see his face. Then, without a word, he called the elevator with his back to it, stepped in silently, and disappeared. That night, I convinced myself it was a case of mistaken identity. Maybe he meant to confront a neighbor instead and picked the wrong apartment. I thought it would end there, though now I realize how naive that was. I was downplaying the fact a man with a knife had almost stabbed me. But back then, I lived more recklessly and was less afraid. About 2 days later, the banging started again. I knew the man was back. This time, anger filled me more than fear. I jumped out of bed, flung open the door, and shouted at him that he had the wrong place and to leave. He muttered something I couldn't understand, annoying me even more. I grabbed a piece of wood by the door and swung at him, yelling threats as he backed off. I left the wood there just in case he returned. I was about to put up some shelves before all this, but after that night, I thought it best to call the police. I didn't want to get in trouble by handling things myself. While on the phone with the police, I looked through the peephole again. He had come back and was banging on the door once more. When I looked, he pressed his eye against the peephole, trying to stare inside. It was chilling. I remember thinking then that the guy was crazy. I should have realized that much sooner, since you'd come in the middle of the night banging and nearly stabbing me. By the time 5 or 6 officers arrived, the man was gone. The weirdest thing was that it was a cold month, but he wore only a t-shirt and shorts. That made me think he lived in the building. It's an 8-story complex with many people passing through daily. I couldn't identify him clearly, but thankfully the heavy police presence seemed to scare him off for good. I still have no idea what made him so angry that night.
This story was sent to me by one of my subscribers. Her name is Madison. After a long night working at the bar, serving talkative customers and cleaning up spills, my day off felt like a true blessing. I spent the morning lazily, planning to watch some Netflix and snack. Around noon, I noticed I was out of a few basics, like milk and bread, so I decided to run to the store. The weather was perfect, warm but comfortable. I grabbed my keys, locked the door, and headed out. When I returned, grocery bags in hand, I saw the kitchen window was wide open. I froze, trying to recall if I had left it unlocked. I was sure I hadn't, but maybe it hadn't latched properly. I set the bags down and walked to the window. The lock was undone and the latch was bent, as if forced open. I tried to come up with a logical reason. Maybe the wind had loosened it, or I hadn't noticed the damage before. Both sounded unlikely, but I held on to them. I searched the house carefully, checking closets, behind doors, and even under the bed. Everything was just as I had left it. No signs of anyone inside, nothing missing. I locked the window and bolted the front door, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. That evening, I settled on the couch with chips and a cheesy horror movie. I almost convinced myself the window was just a strange accident. I even laughed at the movie characters for missing obvious danger signs. At 11 p.m., as the credits rolled, I heard a soft creaking noise upstairs. My house was old and floors groaned with weather changes. But this was different. It sounded like cautious footsteps. I muted the TV and sat frozen listening. After a moment of silence, I laughed nervously and told myself it was just my imagination. Still, anxiety gripped me. I grabbed a broom from the kitchen and carefully went upstairs. My bedroom door was slightly open, just like I had left it. A quick look showed nothing out of place. Other rooms were empty too. Feeling foolish, I went back downstairs, put away the broom, locked all the doors again, and went to bed. At 3 a.m., I woke to footsteps outside my bedroom door. My heart pounded as I sat up, straining to hear more. The footsteps stopped, and a soft creak followed, like someone leaning against the wall. I grabbed my phone and whispered to the 911 operator that someone was in my house. They told me police were on their way. Suddenly, there was a loud thud against my door. Someone was trying to break in, hitting the door with their shoulder repeatedly. The operator urged me to stay quiet. The thudding stopped and was replaced by hurried footsteps going down the stairs. I heard the front door slam just as sirens neared. 2 officers arrived and searched the house while I stood wrapped in a blanket. One officer looked serious and said I should see something upstairs. He led me to the attic where the hatch was open. Inside, he pulled down a bundle of cables and a black device with an antenna. It was a signal booster. Someone had been using it to piggyback on my Wi-Fi. The officer explained it could be for hacking, illegal downloads, or worse. The shocking part was that this device wasn't just planted once. Whoever put it here had been coming back to check it. That meant someone had been inside my home multiple times without me knowing. I showed the officer the bent latch on the kitchen window, the way they had been entering. It was sickening to realize this wasn't a random break-in. They had used my house as a secret base, coming and going undetected and knowing my schedule. My day off was the only time I messed up their plan. The officer took the device and filed a report, but had no immediate leads. I barricaded the kitchen window with a heavy oak sideboard and double-checked every lock. I didn't sleep for nights, jumping at every sound outside. Weeks passed, and I think they noticed the new locks and police presence and moved on.
The police later told me the case was closed due to no evidence. My peace of mind was gone. Months later, I still hesitate to enter my kitchen without remembering how my home became someone else's hideout. I installed motion sensors and an alarm that texts me whenever a door or window opens. A locksmith replaced every lock, and a tech friend secured my Wi-Fi. The intruders are gone, but the paranoia they left stays with me.
This story was sent to me by one of my subscribers. Her name is Jessica. There's a local dollar store near my apartment, closer than any other big stores like Target or Walmart. Because of that, I used to go there pretty often, at least twice a week. It was a small store, not usually busy, which I liked. One evening, I went in to grab a few things. Just a few shoppers were inside, moving around quietly. As I started picking up the first item, a woman suddenly came up to me. She was short, had dark hair, wore glasses, and a black coat. She said she saw me there all the time and even remembered the exact things I usually bought, the off-brand Gatorade and a certain kind of chips I liked. That caught me off guard. How closely had she been watching me to remember all that? And why was she telling me this? I smiled awkwardly and said yes, trying to laugh it off. The conversation ended quickly with her saying she'd see me later. I kept shopping but didn't see her again until near the end of my trip. When I glanced up in an aisle, I caught her walking by, secretly filming me with her phone. She wasn't very good at hiding it. Her phone was pointed straight at me as she passed, pretending to look at products about 20 feet away. She never looked at me, but kept the phone aimed my way. I felt uneasy and thought about confronting her, but instead, I just checked out and left. As I walked away, I noticed her angle the phone to keep recording me, but when I looked her way, she quickly hit it again. I really wanted to say something, but I didn't. It felt too strange and risky to confront her. As long as it didn't happen again, I figured I'd ignore it. A couple days later, I went back to the store. This time, I forgot about her completely and didn't see her at all. But about a week after that first run-in, she was there again. It was later at night and the store was even quieter. I was shopping near the front when I looked out the window and saw her standing next to my car in the parking lot. She was filming or taking pictures, even recording my license plate. I immediately decided to leave. I watched as she tried to open my car door, but luckily I had it locked. When I reached the exit, she ducked behind another car in the lot. I called out to her, asking what she was doing, but she didn't answer. I didn't want to get closer or cause a scene, so I got into my car and drove home. After that, I decided it was smarter not to return to that store for a while. It's been about 6 months since then, and thankfully, I haven't seen her again. I really hope I never do.
Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.